today in the hot seat, we have the lovely Lora Starling, who is a designer, and I cannot wait to get inside sorry, it's Lora, isn't it? I'm going to get your name right. Getting inside Laura's brain. It's going to be Laura and Lauren show today, but yes, I am so intrigued by this amazing woman's background and what you've done and the unique way that you see design and the way that your brain works. I'm so interested. It's going to be such good fun. So Laura, please can you start off by just introducing yourself and giving us a bit of a background about yourself and where you're from and what you're doing.
Sure, I'm Lora Starling. Having been born in Australia, I went to school here and then worked here for a year and went to London, where all the best branding was happening in the late 70s. It was fabulous. I did really well there in the conventional sense, ended up in my own building, running global clients from just south of the Thames, and just got to that stage. I don't know what happens. It happens to so many of us. I thought there has to be more to life. But the logos, the branding, and it's quite an interesting story, but the branding, I just knew intuitively that it was much more powerful than just making a company look good and selling products that aren't doing very much for the future of our world. So I went on a journey and found out how powerful logos are and how we can all use them. That's the short version.
Brilliant. I love it. So what I love about that is that what you're telling us is there is some real meaning behind brands, which is absolutely speaking my language, which I love. Tell us a little bit what it was like working in that fabulous, I mean, you're talking 1970s, late 1970s, working in that design industry in London, being surrounded by some amazing talent. What was that like?
I wouldn't swap it for the world. It was just so buzzy. It was sort of the grounded 60s. You know, the 60s was kind of wild and things, but working through the night, just loving passion what we do, knew we were making a difference in the world. And that love for design, I think design has lost its way. It was like, you know, tweaking, getting excited about letter spacing. You know, it was real design. You know, people pasted real things on real boards. We were like conductors of the orchestra of the future. You know, we pull so many threads together, the client, you know, the other design team, the artworker, the photographer. Each of those would be chosen independently as threads to create one logo, and how that logo was used that then almost like followed those threads back on a different track outside into the world. Whereas now we just sit in front of a computer. So we have to do that in a different way, in a more, I don't like the word subliminal, but in a more consciously unconscious way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is in the world before computers, wasn't it?
It was. Makes you sound very old. I'm very old.
Oh, I remember the days before computers where people used to have to draw and create from nothing, which is
Yes.
it's a skill that you still use today, Laura, that before jumping onto the computer, you'll sit and you'll reflect and you'll do a bit of research first.
I tend to go straight onto the computer, but there is something amazing. I will often, I mean, you know, I've got scraps of paper now, you know, around the place. There's something in it. There's been research that shows that when we have a pencil in our hand and we draw something, it uses a completely different part of our brain. So I will still often do painting and I'll still write things down to just kickstart that. And then once I'm sort of like tuning in, once I've got that, then I can go onto the keyboard. But there is something magical about real. It's what you were saying before we started this. You saw real people the other day. And we're having a great conversation and I'm loving it. And hopefully I'll get to meet you one day, but I know it's going to feel different when you walk through the door. It's like, oh, it's 3 dimensions.
Real experience. Yes, absolutely. Now, Laura, a lot of people say, you know, that all sounds grand. I love the idea of painting or drawing or using another part of my brain. But a lot of people think, well, I'm not creative. How do I look at design or utilize design in my life and in my business if I'm not particularly creative?
We are all creators. I think we're creating our lives every second of every day. So do you want to be your own creator, or do you want to allow somebody else to create your life? So when you go out and you buy a t-shirt, and I notice you're wearing your own brand of t-shirt, well done. You know, you're allowing somebody else to create your life. And this is the way that the world is. You buy anything with a brand, you know, and usually those brands are on our heart area or on our third eye area or around our hara, you know, with the knickers that are around these days with the logos around it. And we identify ourselves with somebody else's creation, with somebody else's dream. But we're all capable of doing that. We're all capable of creating the world that we want to see. And although we might not be able to design our own clothes or to design our own logotype, we can still create our future, imagine how it wants to be, how we want it to look like, and then maybe get a little bit of help. But we, we can design very simple logotypes because they use very, very simple elements of color, symbols, words, sounds, letter spacing that we can all play a part in. So
Yeah,
we are creative. So the main thing is getting your intention right and just getting your vision and your dream right. And we can do that on our own, just sitting and musing, sitting under a tree and say, what do I really want? Tell me what you want.
well, I love it. And the words of the indivisible Spice Girls, tell me what you really want. Absolutely. I love that. Are you creating your world? Are you letting somebody else create it for you? Are you being mindful, I guess, of
Yep.
the design that's going on around you and what you're doing in your life? So Lora, this is really interesting. And I love the fact that you've got such passion for it, but it's very energizing what you're talking about, that people going, hell yes, I can do that. That sounds easy. Let's go and be more creative with what I'm doing and make things happen rather than let things happen to us. What were some of the biggest challenges that you have faced over the years when you've been growing not only your business, but your personal brand?
Was I suppose one of the biggest challenge, the biggest personal challenge I had is that when I was a very successful designer in London, and my husband and I decided that we'd go and buy a farm. So suddenly I'm out in the middle of the countryside with 2 kids, and suddenly I'm a wife and a mother and all sorts of things, but not this go-getting graphic designer. And that was pretty depressing. That sounds awful to say it was depressing, because it was beautiful and it was amazing, but suddenly it was an identity crisis. And I think I use the word depressed lightly in a way, but I felt lost and didn't know where to go. So I dived, whatever it is, I went deeper. And then I learned about the things that really saved me were the plants, was nature. So I've always had this very, very close relationship with nature ever since that. I think it's something we all have as children, and we lose it. So I learned about I became a herbalist while I was still a designer. I made my own flower remedies. And I read a book on plant spirit medicine and started to work with the spirits of plants. All very strange, but people that I was working with got better. And then I applied that to logotypes. My worlds collided, which was brilliant. And I thought, I can design logos physically. I can design them mentally, which is the emotions. Brands, fuel is emotions. But then there's also this, let's call it an energy or spiritual aspect, where we can throw a logo into a room like we throw a Reiki symbol into a room. We know that, Masaru Emoto created remedies, or would create different snowflake patterns in frozen water, depending on whether he imprinted them with love or imprinted them with anger. And all of that, we can do that with logos. So my biggest professional challenge, having got through this personal one, is how do you explain that to the world? So I started writing books. I wrote The Logo Decoded, which basically says, just be careful what you put on your body. Think about it. Do you want your kids? There's schools that won't let children wear logos or colors on it. And then I wrote Identify Yourself, which shows us how we can pull back from people, from brands, and go and make our own brands, which I love. So that's the challenge. And the challenge is almost getting that heard. I don't want it to be about me. This isn't about me. It's about the process. It's a process. It's available to everyone. That's the challenge.
And there's the dog agreeing with you. I love it. Absolutely. Yes, it always is that challenge, isn't it? That especially when you're educating people, do you think that that's the biggest challenge in reality, is you've got this expertise, this knowledge, and this lifelong love of design, and this understanding on how it can actually create emotions, and the messaging and the deep, subconscious work and subliminal work that goes on in logos and identities. How do you educate people that what you're wearing or what you have around your home or whatever has a meaning, and so on? So what are you doing to overcome that challenge and to educate people so that
I'm having this sort of conversation, because I find when I do have the conversation and writing the books, and the latest one to come out is actually is that which is called Future You, which is a much lighter little one, to sort of say, hey, you could be somebody else. The Future You one starts off with a story about a woman that I met in a pub, And she was so excited. And it was as if she'd won the lottery. She's changing the world. I wish she had done this before. And I'd waited for too long and maybe I shouldn't have done. I said, for goodness, what have you done? Invented another fuel? And she said, I bought a handbag worth branded handbag worth £5,000. And she felt like she had made it. And it was like, this would have been made in some factory by poor people. What is it about a handbag that can actually make this woman, this apparently successful woman, or feel even more successful, as if she's made an intelligent person? And I thought, that's not helping the world become a better place.
No, absolutely. Isn't it interesting how there's so many superficial brands or loves of brands that are out there and so on? I know when I worked at Saatchi and Saatchi, the CEO at the time was Kevin Roberts, and he went on to head up Saatchi's in New York and wrote the book Love Marks, which I'm sure you're.
Yes, great, yeah.
Yeah, and it is very similar to that, isn't it? It's you have to be, and it's a challenge, I guess, as well, Laura, to the designers that are out there and the creatives that are out there. When somebody asks you to develop a logo or a brand or an identity for something, yes, you have to take the brief from the client and you have to do what they're asking you to do, but you need also, as a designer, need to be conscious and aware of what you're creating, don't you?
Well, I think you do. I mean, I used to design cigarette packets for Philip Morris a long time ago. I do it now. And that's what I love about the different way that I work. And I'm really lucky in that I don't want to work for people who just want to make the big bucks. And yes, I don't want the wooey stuff that I just want to make the world a better place. I think there's a kind of an 80-20 or a 60-40. So we all need to earn money. It keeps us alive, it keeps us going, it feeds our kids, all of that. But it's not just, I want to earn money and I don't care what happens to the rest of the world, which is how I think not a lot, but many of the global companies work, on that. So I like to put just to sort of flavor the intention, which much more I'd like to be happy, I'd like to create a better world, and I need to earn the money. Because everything we do is intentional. I think it was Oprah Winfrey that said, intention rules the world. So when I'm designing, I want to be really clear on clients' values, or what the values are. That's the corporate word, I suppose, but what people really want, what's really going to make their heart sing. I love connecting people through hearts. I know it sounds really wooey, but it's such a powerful organ. It's more than an organ, and we know through evidence that the heart's magnetic resonance is much, much greater than the brain. So if we can connect through that, and if we can drip that, call it love, for want of a better word, love for the planet, love for making the world a better place, if we can drip that into our logos, that's where the real power begins. I've seen massive shifts take place because of that. And people themselves are more fulfilled. It just spreads a different intention, a much more powerful intention.
Yeah, I love it. It really does enable people to live their brand, doesn't it? To stand behind it.
Yeah.
Think about being proud of the brand that you have and being proud of the work that you do as a designer and a creative, and knowing that your design, your baby that you've helped create, is out there in the world and it's standing on its own 2 feet and it's doing what it's intended to do, which comes back to your statement. So what are you really proud of achieving, Laura? What have you done that you would go, yes, I'm really proud of that?
Oh dear, it's a funny one, isn't it? I'm proud of getting to where I got today, but not in an egotistical way. I think I'm proud of getting out of my ego. Immensely proud of my children, of course. We always go to our kids, don't we? And I've been really lucky. And I'm also, pride is a funny thing. I don't think this is another conversation, I think, over a large Prosecco. It's that pride. It never feels like it's quite me. I think the thing that I feel warmth about and feel that what I've made it is that the things that I do now aren't for me. They're just bigger, they're better, they make me happier. It's just, if I can create some small shift in the world, or if I can spark lights around the world, you know what I mean? Like, I have this idea that the world needs in this immense shift. And if there's enough little lights going off and people going, yeah, I know who I am. And if I can help people, including myself, do that, then I think that's where the shift will come from for a better world, because we really need it. And I think we're getting there. And that's what I feel really excited about being a part of that. So it's not all about me. I mean, I resist doing this sort of thing until enough people like your gorgeous colleague says, no, you've got to stand up and be out there. So I'm doing it.
I think there's a real switch, and it's been something that's been happening for a while, I believe. The people do want to know. They want to know your story. They want to know who's behind the brand. So, and that speaks to what you've been talking about, having a meaningful brand, putting a message out there that makes sense, so that when somebody does eventually meet you,
Yes.
that resonance and that alignment that you need. Now, something that you used to do that you told me about, which I love talking about meeting people, was when you were in London, you had your office at your home or something, and you used to have.
No. I had my own 3-story building just in Southwark, which is a fabulous area. It's just literally just yards south of the River Thames, opposite the City of London, and had a little apartment there. Life was good, but I wouldn't go back to it, but it was amazing. It was really good.
And you used to have clients over? Was that something that you used to just say, come over and meet with us at the office? And
Yeah. I used to get somebody to cater. It was actually a member of the Guinness family, and that's what she did. And she would come over and she'd do the most wonderful meals, and we'd sit there and discuss the world. It was good, but it was very egotistical. It was lovely. It was delightful. It was the perfect timing to do it. And now I'd still do that, although I tend to cater myself or I'll go out. But now the gatherings are different. They tend to be more women. We tend to be more thinking it's deeper somehow, but it's exactly the same purpose. We had one the other night, and there was a group of women energizing somebody's logo. And, I put logos in blank envelopes. And we just all sat around the table, and there were people on Zoom as well. We just literally felt, we did a double blind thing. I knew what the logos were, but what envelope they were. We just felt into the logos, and people came up. The insights were absolutely unbelievable. This stuff is almost magical. People were sort of feeling, this is global, this is it, oh, I don't like this. And when we opened it, it was like, oh my God, I can't believe it was this. I'm doing, one of the logos was something to do with helping the Sea Shepherd. And somebody felt it and said, I see the beach. It was that distinct. So there's stuff, I like going, there's more power, more authentic power at those deeper levels. So the conversations are the same, but they feel much better.
Yeah, absolutely. Those were the days of the long lunch, weren't they? Back in the 70s and 80s, where you could, all sorts of amazing brands were created on the back of an envelope or the back of a bar tab or a coaster in all those places back then. So, Lora, you really are pioneering or changing the way that people look at the effectiveness of design, aren't you?
Yes.
And how it can actually affect people.
Absolutely.
So, challenging is that? And if you could say, okay, I'm going to wave a wand and go into the future, what would that achieve? What would that change in the world for people?
I always have this it's a weird vision. It's a sort of thing, but it's almost like, I'm not really a Trekkie, but you know how things happen in the ether and sort of spaceships and Star Wars. I kind of almost see these logos flying around, because we can chuck our logos into it as well. It's like somebody's going, buy me, buy me, buy me. I'm just going to send my logo up there and check you out. Or I'm just getting, it gives us a device to work in the quantum field. So it's another tool that allows us to play in the same field as the global brands. So, taking them at that more energetic level, or finding out, we can journey through the journeying process of the logo. I wanted to wake up people's different centers, wake up our right creative brains, because that's the only way we change the world, by working with our creativity. I spoke to the guy who wrote The Master and His Emissary. His name eludes me. Ian. Anyway, he lives in Scotland, and he goes around the world lecturing on how the right and left brain communicate with each other. And I said, can I write this? And he said yes. And it was basically that our right brain is always looking for new ways of doing things. Our left brain is going, nope, I've got you here, you're still alive, that's what we're going to do. Unless we open more and more and more to our right brain and trust it more and be creative, whether that's through meditation, drumming, painting, whatever, eventually the little doorway in the corpus callosum will open, the left brain say, okay, it feels safe, and we'll rewire. And then we have another way of working. And so the logo works with both of those sides of the brain in a beautiful way. So we can help people become creative, more creative. Then they can create the future they want, and do it by realigning their left brain with the doing.
I love it. So you really are leveling the playing field, aren't you, for
Yeah.
anyone's brand to compete? Because it is a highly overwhelming world out there, isn't it? So to be seen and noticed and have meaning is quite difficult. So I think that's such an awesome vision. And I love the bit about the left brain, right brain. I think just going to get it right. I think if there was someone said to me, you can tell if somebody is making something up or telling the truth, depending on where their eyes go.
Yes.
If they're coming up with a story, they're going to look towards a certain side. I guess they
Yeah,
look.
it's the left. It's the left side. The left side, because that's the past. I think, although it could vary. I'm not quite sure if you're left or right-handed or the right side, or if you're completely making it up. It's like, oh, I don't know. There's like 5 directions, but I know that left and the right.
Looking at you, exactly. So if you have just tuned in, just a reminder, you are in the Audacious Hot Seat with Lauren and Lora Starling, and we are talking all about the impact that brands can have on the world. If you would like to see more episodes like this, the Audacious Agency YouTube channel is the place you should go. And the Rocket Launch Your Business Facebook group, of course, is where all our gurus and our members hang out. It's a couple of thousand people from all over the world in there. And of course, you can catch this as a podcast, The Hot Seat with the Audacious Agency, wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Now, Lora, we talked about waving a magic wand and going into the future just now. What if we did the same thing and sent you back to your past, back to the 70s when you were there in London having an absolute blast, immersed in that amazing design world? What would you tell yourself in order to just maybe help yourself out with, where you were going and what you were doing at the time?
Do you know, I've thought about this a lot, and I don't know that I would tell myself anything. I don't think you can look back and regret things, because I wouldn't be here today, even with and I'm meant to be here right now. And I think I used to have this a coach, and she used to live in Alaska, and she said, "You're in the right place at the right time all the time." And I just thought, that's right. Why would we change? You don't know. And I have this other it's not my theory, it's another scientific theory, that maybe we're living all these parallel lives at the same time. So maybe this is just the life that I'm experiencing at the moment, because this is where I'm meant to be at the moment. There's another one of me who didn't manage to get stuck in Australia with COVID, or who married somebody else or something, so we are where we are because that's where we are, where we're meant to be.
I love it. There's those sliding door moments that you review in your life, don't you, of what happened or could have been. I love it. And you're right. I know Annette has that favourite saying, it is what it is. And as you just said, we are where we are, and this is where we're supposed to be. So now, Lora, you've been working with Annette and at the Audacious Agency. What have they done for you?
And it's absolutely bloody brilliant. Seriously. It's so easy to help other people, and it's so difficult to help yourself. I mean, even when I go out and buy clothes, and I'm a designer, my daughter will say, "Mummy, did anybody go with you?" I'll go, no, but it was reasonably priced, darling, because I can't see me, but I can see you, it's very hard. So I was struggling a lot with just, who am I? I mean, I know who I am, but how do I get from the me that's me to them who see the me that's me? Kind of that's a bit that I struggle with. I can't see me because I'm in me. And what Annette did, it was absolutely brilliant, that nobody else has done, is that she did a whole yearly plan, but she got me. And it's almost like she'll probably kill me for saying this, and I'm seeing her tomorrow night, so she can physically whack the Prosecco over my head. But she said, she didn't say this, I'm saying it's almost like she channeled it. We had a conversation about, this is what it is, and I'm not your average person. I'm not this, and I do this, and I'm trying to do this, and I'm trying to cross that bridge, and it's not about me, and da 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 da. But I need it. And she just did a yearly plan with every podcast and the subject matter for what I should do for my blogs, detailed out. And I thought, how on earth did she manage to do that? It just happened, and we're following that. I'm following it. I've also got somebody helping with PR in the United Kingdom, and so she just puts everything online for me and monitors, and we discuss it. And I have a chat with Annette once a month and just go, right, I'm on track. This is what I'm doing, and we go through. But she kind of, out of anybody that I've spoken to, got me in a very short period of time. But not only that, just structured this plan. She was able to sort of go deep and then go out.
Brilliant. I love it. And it is hard, isn't it? I know my own story. It took me 5 years to figure out my personal brand, 4 years of figuring it out, and 1 year of trying to implement it before I got it right. I call it ironicide, Laura. It's, it's ironic. You're like the plumber with the leaky tap. You can do it for, as you say, you can do it for other people, but doing it for yourself is so difficult, and you are just too close to the subject matter. So, what are you going to be doing in the next little while? What's your immediate plans for really promoting and talking about yourself? I know you say you've got themes and topics for your content on social media and your plan, but what are some of the things you've got coming up that you're excited about?
Well, I've just finished and promoting the last book, so that's good. So talking to lots of people about that and sharing that and giving it away and selling it and things like that. And the other thing I want to do is to do a program on, so people can learn themselves, so they just don't have to keep coming to me to do the designs. And there will be a part where I need to be involved, because when you do this work, it's really important that the logo looks good as well. I mean, I haven't spent 30 years in design saying, well, just choose a nice symbol and whatever typeface you like, and maybe it's an eagle or a triangle or something, and think of something clever. It's not about that. It's really good to have somebody by your side or advising on that, because it's got to look beautiful, because when it's beautiful, it's in harmony with everything. And nature is about beauty. When you look at roses or leaves, the structure, nature knows about that whole Fibonacci, golden mean, proportions and things like that. So it has to look good as well. So it's kind of instilling that. And I also have a huge vision. I wasn't going to share with you, but I will. So when we have a logo, we implant it with an intention. It's a piece of art with an intention. When we manifest it, that's the first physical manifestation of our intention. So it's the dream, enhanced and embedded in that design. Because it's in a physical manifestation, it gives us something to deliver to the world. So people go, I like that. It's an invitation. I like that. I want to be a part of that. And if they're wearing it, if it's made with love and it's made with the right intention, the right emotions, people are going to feel good. Not an egotistical, I'm wearing a, hoodie, something that J-Lo is wearing or something. I'm wearing something that I truly believe in and will enhance it. I think that we can change the world using that same format by using art. If everybody paints, it's like painting a better future, actually falling in love with nature, expressing that in a piece of art, and through that expression, sharing that through the sale of that art to raise the funds to manifest the vision for a better world.
Wow, that's awesome. I can imagine so many designers and artists will want to get in touch with you, Laura, to talk to you more about this. How can someone find out more about you and get in touch with you?
Website's easiest. Websites is Lora@lorastarling.com, but it's Lora, Starling, like the bird. And that's what I love about the starling bird. And on being on my website, I've got this murmuration of starlings. And I think the new leadership is how the starlings changes. There's one bird in that flock, not like a V of geese, one bird, and who knows who that bird is, changes direction. The 7 around that bird change direction. The 7 around each of those change direction. And suddenly you have this huge, beautiful pattern in the sky. I love it. I'm obviously meant to be born with this name because I think it's a beautiful metaphor for the new leadership.
I love it. Not everybody gets an acronym for their name, like William Wordsworth or, all those people have got fabulous names. So well done. And I love it. Obviously, a big part of your brand is that legacy and impact that you have on the world. Laura, it's been absolutely delightful to interview you today in the Audacious Hot Seat. Thank you so much for your time.
My great pleasure. Thank you. Good to meet you. Thank you, Lauren.
And thank you everyone for listening in. We'll see you in the next episode.